Well, welcome everyone to the Motyv podcast. My name is Shayden Bertagnolli. I'm the host, and I'm here with Blake.
Yep.
Blake Altum.
There you go.
Out of Reno, weighing in at 80 pounds.
Of pure body.
So that's a great beginning. So if you haven't heard, we're here to help liberate the captive. That's what we do here. And today we've chosen a topic that is holds everyone captive in some way. And that is resentment. But what we want to do with this is we want to introduce to you, we're going to actually do some therapy work.
Free therapy for
therapy,
all
yep.
that listens.
And so there's an element in everyone's life that, we're not dumb as human beings. And what that means is that our problems are there for a reason. And sometimes it's a hard thing to say, but we actually the things we hold on to them because they benefit us a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so, nobody eats 3 donuts for no reason, right?
Yeah.
There's a benefit to it. Or in my case right now, my wife made homemade caramels and they're delicious and they're on the Christmas tree in my waiting room and it's really hard to walk by every time.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have told me because then I ate one.
In other words, our problems, they although we don't like them, the reason that we stay in them oftentimes is because it's beneficial to us.
They serve a purpose.
They serve a purpose, yep.
Or several purposes.
Exactly. And those purposes we call resistance. And those purposes are often unseen. They're often even subconscious, you could say. Like that there's a reason that people, when they say, I want to lose weight or I want to be closer to this person, but I just can't. And it's I don't know why. It's like, well, there's benefits to that resentment, or there's benefits to eating sugar. And it's hard to sometimes get into those things, but I'm telling you, and you know this very well, that once you start to realize those benefits, they kind of start echoing to your integrity. They start talking to your integrity, which maybe that doesn't mean anything to you. But what that means is, to me, if, for example, the benefit of eating sugar all the time is that it makes me feel good, and it's something that tastes really good. It's something that is pleasurable for me. So if I don't know that, though, and don't acknowledge it, I might be really confused as to why I can't give it up.
Yeah.
And so, but where it touches my integrity is, well, I actually believe in being healthy. I believe in health. I believe in self-mastery. And so when I start seeing the benefits of that issue, a lot of the time it starts to go against who I actually say that I am. And that is a really good civil war that can occur, where my integrity of who I am, of the values that I hold and possess. If I believe I'm a forgiving person and I see why I'm holding on to resentment, for example, it's going to start kind of butting up against each other. But until we see it, sometimes the energy can exist for that to actually start to break.
Yeah. I would like the listener to maybe focus on a couple of issues. We're going to talk about one specifically today that has to do with the holiday season, but for the purposes of this exercise, think of anything that kind of keeps you stuck, reemphasizing the phrase, we're here to liberate the captive. It's really powerful, right? Yeah. So think about something that keeps you stuck. That just basically means that's keeping you captive in that pattern, in that habit. As therapists, we sometimes ask what seems like an insensitive question, which is what you've already laid out for us. What are the benefits of such and such, right? Depression, anxiety, pornography, sugar, eating bad, fat, whatever.
Yep.
What are the benefits of that for you? And the reason I say it can come off as insensitive, and we don't mean it to be that way. We're actually doing some really good work with you when we ask that question, is because I've had people tell me back, when I ask that question, they say, "What, Blake, do you think I want these problems?"
Right.
And I'm like, of course not. Yep. We're not insensitive to that. But we also want you to start to see things a little bit different, because if you're stuck, then you need more awareness, you need more insight, and definitely just more understanding of why you are staying in the same old status quo. No matter what kind of efforts that you've tried to get out of it or make progress, and you end up feeling more frustrated and even resentful of whatever. It could be God, it could be the universe, it could be people. And that's when we kind of start making excuses. So no, we don't think you want the problem. When we
Right.
ask you what the benefits are, it's really for you to start picking it apart. Why do I keep going back to this thing? And like we said, sugar's awesome. Sugar's awesome, and it gets in the way of my health
Yeah.
or my best self
Right.
if I could be really healthy. Because those donuts are great, man.
Well, and yeah, I haven't had extensive conversations with heroin addicts. I haven't talked to too many. I imagine, though, that if I were to go up to someone who struggles with severe heroin addiction and said, "Hey, what are the benefits of heroin?" They would actually, I would imagine, in the beginning of when they started their addiction, they would have said, "It just makes me high." But maybe later on, they could actually realize, well, it numbs my pain. It helps me. It takes away all my pain. It takes away all of my stressors. It allows me to even feel warm in the cold. It's something that makes me forget my childhood. It makes me be able to calm my brain down. That seems like it never stops. And that's what we're talking about. Those pieces there are what are going to hold people there. But if we said, "Hey, do you like heroin?" It's very likely they'd be like, "No, I wish I could stop. I hate it. It's destroying me." But the benefits are so powerful that it's easy to keep going.
Yeah.
And again, that's a very simple way to put it. If I asked heroin addicts, like, do you like this? Most of them, I don't think, would necessarily say yes. They like what it gives at times.
Yeah.
But so we're going to get into, because and you mentioned it, in light of the holiday season, it's a common, right, that the holidays are a bit of a test sometimes, or a litmus test for you with where your relationships are with people. It's just the way it is. You can kind of go the whole year sometimes maybe avoiding certain family members or whatever, but then the holidays come around and there are opportunities for invitations to get together, or maybe there's just there's an absence that happens in relationships that kind of creates some pain. But it seems like the holidays kind of bring that out in people. And so we want to talk about the most devastating side of relationships that kills it, which is resentment, and actually go through what we call an ulterior motive, to actually figure out what the resistance is to giving up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resentment.
And please, guys, please, I beg you, like, I want you to pay attention to this, because it's one of the most powerful, like, interventions that we use in our offices, is to go through this. And sometimes when you start to list the benefits and then say them out loud, it really hits home, but it also makes it sometimes silly, because you're like, wow, I'm saying that out loud. I don't know if I wasn't in this office that I would actually, like, pinpoint these things.
Right.
Because there's also kind of a pain that comes with that honesty, about those benefits.
Exactly.
But it can be fun once you get the hang of it. And then when you verbalize those things, you can chuckle a little bit.
It's true.
Because they're very simple and pretty silly sometimes.
Yeah. So these questions are going to feel paradoxical because they're supposed to be. So we're going to go over the benefits of resentment and blame, and then we're going to go through the disadvantages of being fully accountable for yourself.
And so we're talking benefits of resenting or blaming family members.
Just anyone.
Friends.
I would say, just again,
anyone.
You're listening, just pick someone in
Yeah.
your life that maybe you haven't been able to forgive. And that'll be a really good start.
And are we specifying during the holidays, or it doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. I'm just saying this, the relevance of our topic is just because of the time.
Okay. All right.
So what's a benefit of resentment? What does it do for you?
If I blame, we can use those words
exactly.
interchangeably, resentment or blame. If I'm blaming another person, then I can relax on my efforts in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. And we're writing these down because we obviously want to remember all of them. You want to make a big list. So another one, this is I would say number one for most people, is the benefit of blame is it protects me. right? If I like I call that the bullets, if you will. If I hold on to somebody else's stuff, then if I have to argue back with them, if I have to protect myself, if they come at me, now I have some ammunition to be able to fire off at them, right? It's just something that it's a huge way to protect myself that I think most people don't really think about. The resentment is a protection, which
And
again is it a great thing to protect oneself in certain relationships? Yeah.
yeah, in some you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess going off that one, it protects me would be I can be hyper aware, like I can be on high alert of what that other person does to hurt me.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it makes it my awareness of them and what they're doing is just going to
I
increase.
can be like hyper focused on the things that I believe they've done to hurt me. And then I can always be like, it's like a radar,
Mm-hmm.
and I can just be ready to either like defend it or avoid it
Yeah.
or run away from it.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people will get to a family event and at any sign of some type of drama or conflict, I can dip out because
Yeah.
like I can sense it because I'm already looking for it.
Yeah. Good point.
So I can just be aware all the time. So that's another one.
You alluded to it in the very first one. I can relax on my efforts. So the way that I would say that for me is that I don't have to be accountable, right? I don't have to be. One of the benefits of blaming and being resentful is I don't have to own my own thing, my own stuff.
I can avoid my own accountability.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah. I don't have to challenge my pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Which is similar. And we're just being as specific as we can because
Exactly.
some of these things will hit you harder than others.
Yeah.
Some will be more applicable in phrased in a certain way, and some won't. And so we just get as specific
Another
as we
one
can.
is it's easier. It's that one over in my sessions. It seems like I'm usually the one that says that to my client to when they're kind of done with their list and like, yeah, I can't think of any more. And I'll say, hold on, I think you've missed one. Like what? And I said, I just think think about it. It's easier in the moment. It's way easier to just choose resentment, to just take blame, whatever.
Why is that? Why is that? It reminds me of something I learned in grad school. We were talking about cognitive distortions, thinking errors, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cognitive behavioral therapy theory stuff. And I was saying something like I told the professor, it's just easier. It's easier to be negative. You know what I mean? And he said something that I kind of tried to change my mind about and in a lot of ways and I know where he's coming from. But he said, no, it's not.
Yeah, in the long run.
He said, no, it's not easier to be negative. And I was like, what? You know, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, natural man this, natural man that. Like it is easier to be negative.
Yeah.
To see the world, you know, to see all our problems and focus on them and complain. Like complaining is really easy. It's easy to be cynical.
Sure.
It's really easy to be cynical.
Yeah.
I fall into that all the time. I'm sarcastic. I get cynical. And so, but I tried to force myself to shift it, and I don't know where I am with it. And I really don't even know where I'm going with this. But the idea was, I was like, oh, he said it's just a habit.
Yeah.
He said it's just a habit.
So maybe we'll put that next to it's easier as in it's what I do. Like it's what we know. And it's true.
Like I can keep the status quo.
Yes.
Kind of.
Well, it's easier. I say it's easier because the flip side would be to dig inside and become extremely vulnerable and actually explain to the person that whatever happened, this is where it hurt me. This is where it disconnected us. And like that's really not, most people have to really take that as an intentional action, an intentional behavior to do, if they even know how to do it to begin with. So
Yeah.
so when I say easier, I guess it's like this default mode of like, well, you hurt me, like hurt people hurt people. So, well, if you hurt me, then it's easier for me to just hold on to this because that's my way right now of showing you that I'm going to hurt you, which is
Instead
yet
of
another
yeah,
benefit, which is called control.
right.
So it create
Sure,
so
I can control it.
well, yeah, and you
That's
can
another
control,
benefit.
or the illusion of control
My
is
side.
what we use with
Yeah,
resentment, which is huge power control.
it's a total illusion.
Hmm. But in the moment, it can manipulate people. It can move people around,
Oh, for sure.
right?
For
So that's
sure.
where it does reward you,
Yeah, there is a reward. There's a benefit to that control.
which we'll get to at the end of this. But remember, these benefits are not supposed to be shameful.
Right.
They're actually they're if you do them in a correct way, there can be a lot of beauty. We'll get to that at the
Yeah.
end. But
One that I was thinking of is that I don't have to get vulnerable.
okay,
Slash, right? Continued would be I don't have to get vulnerable slash have hard conversations.
exactly.
Ooh, I just thought of one. I can pretend that I'm a peacekeeper.
I'll explain it.
Um, People pleasing, I think, and I want to know your thoughts on this too. People pleasing and peacekeeping get mixed up with people, I think. Because in a spiritual, like, Christian, we hear it at church all the time as like be a peacekeeper,
Or a peacemaker. Mm-hmm.
peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that that's exactly right. We
Mm-hmm.
should be a peacemaker
Sure.
for sure. And so then people, I think, get misguided sometimes to say I shouldn't have conflict. Like I shouldn't confront. I should just be cool with everything. But I don't think there's anything that creates resentment more than people pleasing. And so I think people get off track when they're trying to be a peacemaker. They fall into people pleasing. I think it's just what I've seen
Mm-hmm.
because like, I'm just trying to keep the
Oh, yeah.
peace. It's like, oh, that's fine, but you're tolerating so much walking all over. You're a doormat and you're tolerating this stuff for years. And all of a sudden you can't stand your husband and you can't stand your wife and you can't stand your brother or your mom. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And it happens over years because you're just trying to keep the peace and you're trying to stay out of everyone's hair and not step on their toes. And then after a few years, you're like, they never put effort into this. They're not watching out for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it gets a little bit misguided.
Yeah. So you think you're being a peacemaker.
I can pretend that I'm being a
Mm-hmm.
peacemaker while I'm actually being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Right?
That brought up another one of maybe there's a false sense of martyrdom. And maybe I shouldn't say false sense because if we're strictly talking about the benefits, then one would say one of the benefits of resenting and blaming is that I feel like it's the witness that I was a martyr. As a witness
Mhm.
that I fell on my sword and that I'm the bigger person here.
Yeah, I'm the bigger person and no one's giving me credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a sense, like a real martyr did that, excuse me, did that for a good reason, right? Like an
Yeah.
actual martyr by the book is a heroic, brave type of thing. In our relationships, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think. That causes even more resentments.
Yep.
Because people don't want to connect to that. People don't want to connect to that victim type of mentality.
Yeah. And again, if you're listening, I hope you're listening with open ears and an open heart too. We're not trying to. I hope this never sounds judgy or that this. We're just going through as much as we can to help people jump into your own awareness or the lack thereof to dive in to see where you might be missing in your own life. I want to go back to the protecting one.
Okay.
Because I had a vision of someone in my head come in of maybe they've really been hurt in maybe an infidelity or something else. It's just a big betrayal and for that moment, this resentment, this blame is so appropriate, in that it's the one thing I have to keep me safe. And I know we kind of talked about that from the protection side, but I wanted to use the word safe too, because I know there's a lot of people there where they haven't really known how else to create a sense of safety with someone that they truly think is like unsafe, And so it just keeps you at bay in a way. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Because then, you don't even get exposure to them.
And maybe it prevents. It's the benefit is it makes me know or believe that I'm preventing something from happening again.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Any others that are coming to your mind before we move on to the other one?
I'm not sure. I think for the sake of just time and the idea, I think that it's coming across, right?
So again, in a very kind way, if you look at these benefits, even if you look at a few of them, could you maybe be very kind with yourself and realize, maybe that actually makes more sense why I've struggled with resentment and blame with this person. I've actually been seeking the benefits of said resentment. It wasn't that I'm just this resentful jerk of a person. It's that I've been trying to achieve these benefits, and I just so happen to have been deceived to have done it this way. And we're just here to tell you that there's other ways to achieve those benefits, which we could probably, if we did a 2-hour podcast, we could go on. But yeah, there are other ways of achieving those benefits too.
Yeah, if you think about this list, the benefits of these, your efforts in your resentments, right? You're not purposefully trying to actively resent people, and
not all the time, right?
Well, that's why it's ulterior, right? It's kind of in the background, a little bit low key.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense? And so, I think sometimes, depending on the issue, on the same type of list with other issues, I think there is a little more intentionality with it. I don't know if I don't believe that it's always on the forefront of our mind to actively resent somebody.
Yeah.
We feel it, we feel it, we feel the negativity, we get critical and judge them. But yeah, I don't think that it's like a full on effort to resent.
Yeah.
That would be a weird one. But I guess what I was getting to with that is that in these benefits, we are trying to meet a need. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we just listed some. Protection, safety, relaxation, like low key, stay out of conflict and drama, some of those things. And so yeah, I think that's the other compassion part. For your self-compassion, know that when you're identifying some of these benefits, you're still seeking a need. And so, real quick tangent, then, if you make the same list for pornography, what are some of the benefits of pornography? It feels good, could be entertaining, it relaxes you, there's a release, like all of those things are legitimate needs. We have needs. We need to get them in better ways.
Exactly.
So,
all right, so let's go to the other side. Yeah,
which is one of my favorite parts too. I think it wraps it all up when you say these things out loud.
So the first one is and this might go over your head, but the first one is the resistance we have to, it's called outcome resistance. So the benefit of our problem says this is why we wouldn't want to give this thing up, right? Now what we're going to do is say this is why we won't want to do what it takes,
right,
to give it up.
Yep.
Right. And so that's called process resistance. So we're gonna look into that. So what it takes with resentment and blame is accountability. So now we're gonna look at the disadvantages of being accountable.
Yeah, and so it's another paradoxical question.
Yep, another paradox,
right?
Here.
So just try to wrap your mind around it because it's a new idea for most people. What are the disadvantages of starting to take personal accountability? Right? What's the first one you can think of?
First thing is it hurts.
It's so painful.
Like I felt it.
That was me too. It's painful.
It's
was
painful.
What I was going to write down. Why?
Because it's humbling. Like it'll humble you and force you to look inward as to what you did to create whatever the relationship break was.
Exactly.
It's humbling. And again, when we're trying to protect ourselves, and if we have whatever ego we've created, that's what it's going to break. Like it's going to start breaking that. And that's the pain. It's like, man, how I've perceived myself has to be seen as different. That it, like I've created this outside persona of myself that is so to speak safe, and I protect it with resentment, but crap, now I have to like break that down. I have to publicly take that down, and that's painful. I've never had to do that in my life. Other people do. I've never had to actually break my ego, but I'm waiting for you to laugh.
Sorry, I'm writing, but I am laughing. We can't multitask.
Yeah.
Totally. I've been on this kick lately of just this idea of self-examination with my clients. And I'm like, guys, self-examination is easily the hardest part of therapy.
Yeah.
Like easily.
Totally.
It's like not, to me, I've just been thinking about it for like a month straight. And I'm telling everyone, guys, get ready. Get ready. Like you have to do this to progress.
But it's also liberating.
Because
the truth will set you free.
It's so true. It's worth going through that pain so that you can know the good.
Yeah.
And you have to go through it to make progress. Just like we've talked about it 1,000 times. You can't get better without pain. You cannot grow without pain or discomfort. And when you sit there and you go, oh man, I'm wrong. I was wrong for all these years sometimes, or for this last year, or for the last several months, or even weeks. Oh crap, you're right. I'm wrong. Why is that so scary to be like, I'm wrong?
Because we were putting out that we were right for so long.
Right. But when I ask people what's wrong with admitting that you're wrong, or like what's so painful about it, what is it? Something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be seen as weak.
There we go.
Right. So I don't want to be seen as weak. If I've been wrong, or if I have to admit that I've been wrong, something is wrong with me, or I'm weak. And that pain is like brutal.
Yeah.
The cool part about that though, and maybe we're jumping ahead, is like when you do it, it diffuses everything. If the other person has even some level of health, of like emotional
and you could say it in this way, that you'll know where they're at too.
That's right.
I'm fully accountable with you, and you take that and smash it. It shows a lot.
Think about the times you have done it and you're like, holy crap, you're right. You're right. I've been doing this too. It's really painful for me to admit that. I'm so sorry. But I've been wrong. And if you're willing to talk about it, then I am. Imagine doing that. What is 99.9% of the time, people are going to like
hear you.
They'll hear you. They'll be grateful for it, but they're also sometimes, depending on that relationship and how strong that disconnect has been, they might even be like a little taken back in a good way.
Yeah. So let me jump on that. So maybe someone listening right now is saying, yes, but the disadvantages of me doing that is I actually don't want that relationship with them.
Oh, it's
and so let's write that one down of like, it's, again, it might look like an invitation to the person that you want a relationship, but you really don't. And that's okay. Like, it's not all people that you take accountability with means that you want to have that you trust them, or that you have this new desire for a relationship. It actually just means you're doing it sometimes because that's what you need to do.
Yes.
Right.
And it doesn't mean, hey, let's strengthen our relationship now. It means I need to get rid of these resentments. And I'm fine. I respect you, but that doesn't mean hang out all the time.
So the other person might think I want a relationship.
I might give the other person false hope
when I really don't, which is, in many cases is absolutely like, I call that the Judas principle. I wish you the best. He didn't resent Judas when he betrays him, but he didn't run after him either.
Yeah.
He didn't say, why are you doing this? Don't do this to your soul. He
let him use that agency.
Yeah, he had to use it, but it doesn't mean the trust was gone in that way.
Right. So I might give the other person false hope or inappropriate expectations for a relationship. or like the direction of our relationship. Okay.
I mean, the self-examination one keeps coming up too for me.
It's so
It's what it
big.
requires. So what if we add this in there? Let's add in empathy as well. So we did resentment and blame on the other side. This is the disadvantage of accountability, and then let's add in and showing empathy for the other person,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
those are the two requirements.
Accountability and empathy.
Yep. Because you got to own your own stuff, and then you also have to be extremely empathic with the other person.
If I have empathy, it might seem like I excuse their behavior. With empathy, it might come off as excusing their behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's like the biggest but that we get in this exercise. I don't know about you. Like in my experience, people are, yeah, but what about the other side?
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with a couple or whatever, and you say, I don't know. It's not that big a deal unless you want it to go on, but your job is to still do your job.
So in that case too, that's where I'd say that empathy can be one of the disadvantages, is that you could assume that there's going to be more pain, because if I show a lot of empathy for you and it isn't reciprocated, I might, here I am trying to maybe repair something.
Yeah.
And then I actually put my heart out there and there's no reciprocity. It's just like, why did I just do that?
So it feels risky.
It feels very risky, vulnerable, and again, it could invite more pain.
Empathy seems risky because it might invite more pain.
And that's what's so hard about this, because these truths, I'm going to call them that, these absolute laws of relationships are required. And so that's where a lot of people listening right now be like, you're right. Like it could invite more pain. Like, why would we ever do that? Like, why? And it's because of your own soul. That's why.
That is
it's
exactly
because that's
right.
who you need to be. And in the end, whenever that end might be, when accountability is there, you will know that you have done what you could. And I'm just telling you, attempting empathy and showing accountability will always set your soul free. It'll at least give away resentment, but you might still feel guilt. You might still feel sad. You might feel a lot of other deep emotions, but resentment is absolute poison. It is poison to everyone, not just you. Whereas I could feel guilty, and it's just with me a lot of the time if I feel guilt. But if I'm walking around resentful, there's people that I don't even resent. They're probably going to feel it. Like it's just going to start happening. Like the coldness that it does is real. Our world is a living witness of it right now. There's such little forgiveness that goes on. Just get in your car and drive. Get in your car and drive and do something incorrect on purpose and watch what happens.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be a lot of forgiveness.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. The empathy piece is really standing out to me because it feels so risky. I know we just covered that, but that risk of, oh crap, they might take it as, hey, they excuse this.
But just say this, if I was a salesman for it, I don't know many human beings who don't want to be understood.
Right.
And that, why do we yell? It's to be understood. We're trying to be understood. We're trying to be heard, right? Yeah. Why do we do dumb things sometimes? We're trying to be seen. We're trying to be understood. Sometimes suicidality is actually just to try to be seen, to be heard. Like, here I am, I need some help. Like, it's extreme behaviors that sometimes we're just doing it because we don't know what else to do. And it's because inside all of us, we want to be understood and understood correctly. What guy or woman, if someone's come up to you and said, man, you just kind of look ornery today. It's like, if we're not ornery and they assume that of us, we all know the answer. Like it ticks us off. Like we don't want to be that. And so again, we will usually correct people. And I've found that when people attempt empathy, the other person in most cases feels quite disarmed and sees like they're trying to understand me. And most of the time, empathy begets empathy. Most of the time, listening begets more listening. Not always though, but most of the time.
And if it doesn't, it says more about where the other person is. Exactly. And you can know, and you can have confidence that if you've done your due diligence and you've done this exercise and then you've gone and taken accountability for it, the rest is out of your hands.
Yeah.
You don't get to control what the other person does.
Yeah.
So I have another idea that goes along with the empathy piece, and maybe we can end on it. When I think of empathy and the risks of it, what came to mind was another exercise that I do to help people give other people the benefit of the doubt, right? The benefit of the doubt, giving someone the benefit of the doubt is a big empathy development type of exercise. And I have this rule, it's called the rule of 6. And the first, if somebody upsets you, the first of the 6 is to identify like that negative thought. I always use driving, and it's like someone cuts you, a freaking jerk, a-hole, whatever, right? Like you start coming up with these negative thoughts, and then you come up with 5 alternative thoughts about why they might have done that. But I always have to make sure that the client, and if you're listening, that you do not, it's not an excuse. It's not giving other people an excuse type of exercise. It's just empathy. They might be on their way to the hospital. They might be going to the ER. They might be late to a job interview. And sure, they should have left early, but it's an explanation, not an excuse. And I think then you could make a new list. What are the disadvantages of giving someone the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah.
It still feels risky. It feels like you're going to excuse it, and they might take it that way too.
Right.
And so it is risky.
Whereas I see that, by the way, is just protecting your own peace. That's
totally.
Why. Doesn't even matter if you're right or wrong. It's just if it creates peace, then do it.
Yep. And if it doesn't, then you got to look into why.
One other one I put down was sometimes with accountability, maybe I say something, come in, and you're here, and I'm like, dude, this weekend this happened, yada da da da, and you're listening to me, and you're like, well, actually, I kind of could see where Shayden, I kind of see where in your head.
Yep.
And let's just say I'm, seeking some accountability. What it's going to force me to do is trust your feedback and trust you, which is often hard too. Like, am I going to trust someone? Because sometimes you don't know.
You doubt my advice sometimes,
Blake.
Shayden?
Just every once in a while. Just sometimes you just drink too much caffeine. And it's like, but yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So it's a trust. Again, part of the risk, I guess we could say, is that I have to trust others' opinion as they might give me feedback as I attempt to repair the situation or take accountability for this situation. There are blind spots I have that only others might be able to give me some feedback on. Yep. And I have to trust it, which is tough.
If you can build that type of relationship where you can either ask, hey, can I share some thoughts with you on this one? Like, can I give you a little bit of feedback? And in a really good relationship, you kind of don't have to ask.
Yeah.
You can just be like, well, look, man, like, did you think about this? Did you think about this possibility? Maybe, I don't know. Like, I wasn't there, but I wonder if they were like going through their own thing too.
Yeah.
And again, it's not an excuse. It's just an explanation.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's okay, but it helps ourselves. Like you said, like what you say about the soul?
Free the soul.
Yeah. It's like frees our own soul.
Yeah.
And gives that peace.
Well, if you happen to be doing this on actual paper, one thing you can do now to finish this up, which is really, really cool, you can go through, and on the blame side, on the benefit side, you can start to do an exercise of how you would achieve these in a new and better way. So I call it reinvent plan A, because resentment for a lot of people and blame is plan A. It's what we do first. And the reason we do it first is because we haven't thoroughly given intention to do something else. Oftentimes, like, why did I do that? It's like, well, it's because you actually didn't intend to do anything else. That's why. So we want to create a better intention as to what we could do to achieve these benefits in a holier and better way. And it's a really cool thing to do sometimes. It doesn't always work perfectly, but if you just put the benefit of Jesus, if all you do is put the benefit of Jesus, I can relax on my effort. It protects me. I can be high alert and hyper focused. I can avoid my own accountability. So that not every single one of them works, but oftentimes it's like, well, the power of Christ actually replaces a lot of those benefits.
Yeah, and not all of them, but I love that. That's such a good direction, because it's way more like solution focused.
Well, and then some of them just need to be given away. That's the other side, is on the benefits. Some of them just need to be, like, I just need to sacrifice and fast that benefit. It needs to go away.
The benefit. You think about that if you have like a sugar addiction or any other type of food thing where you're comfort eating and it's like your release or it's your escape. eating is sensual, right? And that's okay. We have sensations. Some of them we get to pursue. I guess we get to pursue all of them if it's in a good, healthy, appropriate way. And so if you've got an issue with like food, for example, then that's a perfect example of what you just said.
Yep. So then on the other side, this is where we want to, we have to accept them.
Yeah.
Right. So on the disadvantages side, in order to really do the hard things, they're going to be required no matter what. And so you've got to actually learn how to wrap your mind around them and accept the fact that they're real. And that can be difficult at times, but sometimes it's getting them on paper and looking and saying, okay, you really can't do painful things. Like look at your integrity, look at who you are, and juxtapose that with this list of like, yeah, have I done harder things before? Do I know how to do this? Like, how do I learn to accept this? And I promise you'll start to figure it out. But you have to be intentional about accepting them as the steps to do this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. It's so interesting when you say that, like, can you do painful things? You've been surviving this whole time.
Well, resentment's more painful than any of it.
Yeah. But like by the
irony.
time you get to where you're either looking for a therapist or you get into the office, you've already survived all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's self-inflicted. I was talking to a guy last week and it's like 3 years of really poor decisions. And I'm just like, and he's like, I just don't know how I'm going to keep. I'm like, dude, I can't believe you're here. I told him, I can't even believe you're here on earth. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Cause he's been through so much and it's a roller coaster all the time. He has good realizations and then he drops off. And then it's just like, dude, you're still here.
Yep.
Obviously you can do painful things.
Yep.
You just didn't know it was going to have to be this type of painful thing.
Yeah.
You're already suffering all the time, even if it's self-inflicted. It still sucks. And they're enduring it. They're still in our office.
Yeah.
It's like, it opened my eyes last week. I don't know where it came from. I was like, dude, I'm shocked that you're here.
Yeah.
Based on the way that your life has gone. Some of it self-inflicted recently, but the way he grew up, I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe you're still here. Good job.
It's beautiful.
And it changed his whole demeanor. He calmed down. He was super fidgety and hyper and like manic.
I wish I could say that to every single person I come in contact with. Everyone's suffering. Everyone's going through something.
Yep.
And you're here.
Yep.
And that's life.
Yep.
That's what brings us together if we let it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Cool.
Well, I hope that helped you. And if it didn't, then that's your own fault. Just
Take personal accountability.
I'm going to take accountability. But I hope it's been good for you, really. And it might actually be a little hard. It might be painful because it can, again, even the things we shared can bring stuff up like, oh man, that is actually true. That is why. And it can kind of sabotage your resentment, which is a little bit of my goal and your goal too, is like, we want to sabotage your resentment so you can actually see it for what it truly is.
Ooh, I found another benefit.
What?
Of resentments.
Not another one.
You can talk about it. Like you can gossip. Yeah. You can have drama. You like some people
create more chaos.
It's easy, yeah. And it's just like, gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
There's certain people where they don't talk about anything else except like kind of criticism and judgment of somebody else in their life.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Let's stop that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening as always. Share the podcast with others and let us know what we can do to help you. So hope this liberates and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. See ya.